mind you, where the sun is only 15 degrees above the horizon at noon in February. After a walk, he came back in and collapsed. Medical emergency personnel were summoned immediately. That seems likely, right? All attempts to resuscitate him resulted in no positive outcome. So Navalny is likely no longer with us. Now, his wife doesn't agree. She has said that she's got no evidence of it. Don't listen to them. They're lying just so that nobody thinks about him during the election cycle that's coming up. And those may be the words of a grieving widow who can't cope with the reality. Or they may be the cool, calculated cynicism of someone who's been lied to her whole life by her government. Either way, until we have real confirmation, I think Mrs. Navalny is right to hold off on, whether or not this is true, whether or not it's true. Now, regarding his unaliving, there are a couple things. Biden, David Cameron from the UK, the defense minister, and Donald Tusk of Poland all put the blame squarely on Putin. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not the guy is actually unalived, but we'll see what happens. The world, of course, is in shock and horror. True or not, here, wait, who said that? I want to give you credit. Rational Squirrel says, true or not, deliberate effort to scare the Russian people, get them in line, scare his supporters, scare the opposition. Damn right. You're absolutely right. It is, Rational Squirrel. Make no mistake. I don't know if you guys know this story, but this is my favorite Alexei Navalny story. They poisoned him, right? They attempted to assassinate him using poison. And after he recovered, he called one of, the head of the death squad that had been assigned to assassinate him. And he pretended to be some higher up in the chain, calling to complain and demand an explanation as to why Navalny was still alive. And he recorded this conversation, and the guy goes through the whole plot, right, and confesses to the whole thing on the call with the victim. It was you want to talk about brass balls. Holy shit. And he knew just how to talk to that guy to get it out of him. It was really impressive. You really got to give the guy credit. Yeah. Well, the problem with the Belarusian opposition leaders is that they're in exile. They're a government in exile, right? They were legally elected, and then Lukashenko started rounding them up, and so some of them ran, and they're now a government in exile. So anyway, there's that. Now, the other big story, of course, is this ongoing thing, as Jackie brought up, the question of weapons platforms in space. And I was very pleased today to hear that the Telegraph had spoken to Dr. Malcolm Davies, who is at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, senior fellow at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, who said, as I did last night on this live, something very similar, it would be a deliberate and direct violation of the 1967 Outer Space Treaty by Moscow. That treaty is a cornerstone of space stability, and it would be a grave setback for international arms control. So I was glad to finally hear somebody talk about the 1967 Outer Space Treaty. I was also gratified to hear Neil deGrasse Tyson today on CNN say everything that I had said about nukes in space, that they're dumb, that it's stupid. They don't work in outer space. You need an atmosphere for them to really be destructive. He did correct me on one thing, though. We can get an ICBM anywhere on the planet in 45 minutes. It does take 45 minutes, the longest run of an ICBM nuclear missile. Okay. The White House assessed this threat as serious but not imminent. The Russian deputy foreign minister said the U.S. was making a malicious fabrication. He was quoted in TASS as saying the U.S. was making a malicious fabrication with this story. Peskov would not comment and said it was a ploy to get Ukraine funding. And you know what? It could very well be. Mike Turner, a Republican who is facing real challenge from his own party on getting that funding for Ukraine through, funding for Israel, funding for Taiwan, the foreign aid bill, he may well have disclosed this piece of national security information simply to drive the conversation forward and put more pressure on his Republican colleagues to pass that financial aid and squeeze Putin. Dear God, I hope so. Because it's a legitimate argument. It's not an imminent threat, but it's a legitimate threat. And the more pressure we put on Putin and his regime, the less likely they are to be able to pull anything off. I forgot to mention, regarding Navalny. Do you guys remember when they moved him to IKE 3? He was an IKE 6, and they moved him to IKE 3, Polar Wolf, which is a gulag north of the Arctic Circle. Hey, Maddie, do you guys remember when they moved him up there, he was disappeared for 3 weeks? 21 days. Nobody from the prison system could tell us where he was. Everybody thought that Putin had unalived him at that time, right? And just nobody knew. So the prison system is so efficient that for 3 weeks they couldn't tell us where the guy was, right? The guy's official time of death was 2/17, according to reports. The announcement of his death was posted to the prison website, the official Ministry of Prisons website, at 2:19. Now, if that doesn't scare the shit out of you, I don't know what would. And Bo of the Fifth Column, who, if you guys don't follow over on YouTube, he's great, Bo of the Fifth Column. He was very clear today. He was like, if Putin did do this, it's because he has presidential immunity. The very thing that Donald Trump claims to have and want to claim. And that the very idea that if we give it to him, it's the end of democracy. It's the end of everything we know. It cannot be allowed. Yep, everybody says he was just fine. He had a recent court appearance. He was joking with the judge, which is not a good idea. They fined him over it. But he was joking with the judge about having a party and about needing money to pay his fines because he gets so many fines in this prison, I guess. Somebody had asked on last night's live where they can get souvenirs. Yes. I just heard on the news on the way home that Trump was fined $400 million or something like that for fraud. I think it was $350. I think it was 350 million. Can anybody confirm that? But that's in the tax evasion case, right? Where he overvalued properties to take loans and undervalued them for taxes. $355. So it's a good hit. It's a good hit. $350 million. It means he has to liquidate everything he owns to pay off E. Jean Carroll and this one. But it doesn't matter because very soon he'll be in jail for the rest of his life on the insurrection charges that Jack Smith is bringing. So the guy is done. He's done. He's ruined. His reputation is shit. If he weren't running for president, he'd already be in jail for all the shit he's done. Phew. Anyway, somebody had asked on last night's live, where can they get battlefield souvenirs, for want of a better term? And I don't deal in any of that. I'm not involved in any of that stuff. However, I did do some volunteer work for an organization called Zampotech earlier in the year, and I can validate the good work that these guys do. And my buddy Alex over there recently got his hands on the wing of a Russian fighter jet, and they are stamping out these little fighter jet ornaments that say, "Be brave like Ukraine," out of the wing of this Russian jet. And so there's a video posted that you can check out. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, I forget who it was that asked about it last night. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, that's a great place to go for it. And I had mentioned them last night. They usually do big art sculptures that they auction, but these are just little fighter jets. I'm sure you can get one for, I don't honestly know what they're going for. But they're good guys. I encourage you to check them out. Hey, you guys know how we've been talking about how missiles and drones are going down unexpectedly, going off course. And we think that it might be an electronic warfare system that the Ukrainians have developed. Well, apparently it is. And it's called Pokrova. And we don't know much about it. We know very little about this particular electronic warfare system. Apparently, it doesn't jam, it spoofs. So instead of sending lots of signals to overwhelm the drones or the missiles, which have a lot of anti-jamming capabilities already, instead it sends subtle incorrections to the targeting and GPS coordinates, which throws them off by 5 kilometers for every 100 kilometers that they run. So if they're coming 600 miles in to the west of Ukraine from Crimea, when they start pinging these things with the bad information, they're off by 30 kilometers from their targets and hopefully out in the country someplace. The Pokrova electronic warfare system, that's a new thing. Budanov, in an interview with Liberation, thank you for the heart, with the French periodical Liberation, said that he knows who poisoned his wife. He was very offhand about it. When asked, "Do you know who poisoned your wife?" he said, "Of course I do." And then said that we will very soon see on the territory of Russia the retaliatory strikes. So apparently he's got somebody in his sights, and they are in Russia. And I'll tell you, I would not want to be that person. Definitely, I would not want to be that person. Hey, Clay, is Clay here? Clay Fry, this one's for you, pal. Russia's got to stop hitting itself. It just keeps hitting itself. Today, a Russian S-300 missile, we believe, it's not entirely clear, but a missile in Belgorod that was fired at Kharkiv came down on the local shopping mall in Belgorod. Now, there's two reasons why that happens, right? The Russians have a high failure rate with their equipment, unprecedented compared to anything in the West. Then the other thing is they put the multiple launch rocket systems behind the city, and they have to shoot over the city of civilians every time they fire. Similarly, every incoming attack on those rocket systems has to come over the civilian population's head. They're basically using the city of Belgorod as human shields for their for their multi-launch rocket systems. Coalition. France and Ukraine have signed a historic agreement of security cooperation. Paris will provide 3 billion euros to Kyiv in 2024. You know, with the 2.5 billion pounds that the British are supporting, are providing, that's over $6 billion. And that's a movement in the right direction. It's only 10% of what America has promised, but let's hope we can get that through. The UK pledging $200 million for thousands of drones. We talked about the drone coalition yesterday. Those drones, of course, will be manufactured in the UK, which will be jobs for the UK. But some of those funds will go to establish and create a drone academy or drone school, likely in Latvia. And so now that 200 million that comes out of the 2.5 billion that UK has already allocated. So it's not new money. We've just been informed of its use. Australia has made a $50 million grant to the International Fund for Ukraine. That fund is managed by the UK and is used to prioritize weapons purchases on behalf of Ukraine. Robles, the Spanish defense minister, we talked yesterday about the rapid transfer of M113 APCs to Ukraine, but we didn't know how many there were. There are 20 in that rapid transfer coming up, plus an Inspire SAM battery air defense. Germany has announced a new aid package, 18 APCs. So with the Spanish ones, that's 38 new armored personnel carriers, 4,155 millimeter shells, one engineering tank, 9 mine-clearing plows, 48 drones of various types, and 4 border guard vehicles, plus 500 LED lights and some IT equipment unspecified. So the Germans keep coming, boy. There is a law under consideration in the Rada for a draft here in Ukraine. There is not currently a conscription here in Ukraine. So they are talking about lowering the draft age from 27 to 25. Notices will be emailed and in person. Folks in that range will receive 2 to 3 months of training before they see any action. If you volunteer, you can volunteer at the age of 18, and 18 to 24-year-olds will require 5 months of training. And then finally, in Russian airline news, a Sukhoi Superjet 100 had to return to the runway, forced emergency landing immediately after takeoff because of because of an engine failure. That's right, that one was an engine failure. 2 Boeing 737s had tech issues and were returned to the runway immediately following takeoff. And a Boeing 737, I cannot imagine how this came to be, struck its tail on the runway and has been grounded indefinitely. So it's not going to be long before Russia has no commercial airline program in Russia. The planes that they have stolen are running out of juice. It's just that simple, and they are out of spares to cannibalize for them. Yeah, sanctions aren't working, clearly. Clearly. They're not working well enough. It is Nightshade. It's an air disaster waiting to happen. Yes, it is. The bots are flooding in. Yes, they are, but I'm not worried because I have Vanetta and Cheyenne and PT and John Williams, and they will save me from myself. Yes, they will. So, guys, that's it for me on the prepared stuff. That's all the top line news. If you like what I do, please like, subscribe, and share. I am really desperate to get some more Patreon supporters. I keep asking and nobody's joining. Is there nobody out there that can kick me $5 a month and think I'm worth it? I sure would appreciate it. Oh, they're the best moderator team on the Tickety Talk, make no mistake. Big thanks to Lars, who's got the Discord server up and running and handles some tech stuff in the background. Big thanks to Nightshade, who runs Peter's Peeps and is doing some interesting things over there. I really appreciate his work. And I think, Nightshade, hang tight to the end tonight, because I think you're going to like this. I think you're going to like this, brother. I got something for you. Okay, so questions, comments. We are now at the Q&A portion of things. Questions, comments, points of observation, or personal need. Anything from anybody about anything. If you asked a question earlier, I didn't see it. The scroller goes fast, and please chat it back in again. Questions, comments, points of observation, or personal need. Avdiivka is in rough shape, no doubt about it. Doesn't mean it's going to fall, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to. Is it possible for Ukraine to recapture Avdiivka? Hobo, the last I heard, the 3rd Assault Brigade was attempting to set the conditions that would allow that very thing to happen. I had suggested last night, and I believe it's part of their mission, but I no longer believe it's just their mission, that their mission was to go in and stabilize the front and get the troops that were in there out. And that seems to be stage 1. Stage 2 appears to be happening now. I don't have the details. I'm going to try to get some details and actually hope to publish an update tonight. So watch for that. They did, Sharon, where that region was closing in the south, right? My understanding is that everybody got out of there just fine. Well, except for everybody that didn't. Thanks, Yote. Bobby says I'm the best $30 he ever spent. Monthly, because Bobby's been a subscriber for a while. Well, I sure appreciate that, Bobby. Every month I make a video and I mention that Bobby is the sponsor of that video. If you would like to sponsor a video once a month like Bobby does, please join the Patreon at the $30 a month or higher level. Maddie asked the question, should Avdiivka be seen as a victory for the Russians? Let's let them take it first, Maddie, then we'll talk about it, huh? No word yet on when the F-16s are going to be here. Didn't Russia put a bunch of equipment there, did I hear? Where? Rational Squirrel. In Avdiivka, yes. They moved a whole bunch of men and machines in to try to take the city. And they're putting a lot of pressure on the Ukrainians. Navalny's top aide was on NPR saying, give Ukraine $300 billion to undermine Putin. I mean, good. That's good. I'm glad that the Navalny people have changed their tune about Ukraine. Okay. The logistics, getting in and out of Avdiivka, is a concern. The main communication line is under Russian shelling at this time, as I understand it. And so they had prepared secondary routes of escape. That's probably not what you call them in military terms, but of egress, separate secondary routes of egress. And they are using those to get out, is my understanding. Didn't Ukraine send the legendary fist to Avdiivka? They sure are. I don't know what that is or who that is. It's the 3rd Assault Brigade. Is that another name for them? Maybe. When is the fair and honest Russian election? Why, Clay, whatever do you mean? Me too. So Anthony says, I hope that Americans are protesting outside for Ukraine aid. Now look, guys, we do not need that many Republicans to cross the aisle. We just need Mike Johnson to have enough pressure on him to bring the bill to a vote. And then we need just a handful of Republicans to cross the aisle. If you've got a Republican congressman in your state, it doesn't have to be your district, in your state, and you want to do something about this, find out if he's against this aid, and then get some people to protest outside of his office this week. They're home. They're home because Mike Johnson abnegates his responsibility and duty every chance he gets. And when the foreign aid bill came up, what did he do? Take it seriously? Bring it to the House for a vote? No. He sent everybody home on vacation. I say let's make that work to our advantage. It will mean that Tom Suozzi will be there to vote on foreign aid. It will mean that there is 2 weeks where we can get in front of these Congress people in their hometowns and put the screws to them to get on the right side of history and throw off the yoke of their obsequious dependency on the orange Jesus. Enough is enough. Contact your local Ukrainian organizations, or if you're in the right neighborhood, contact your local Jewish organizations, or contact your local Palestinian organizations, or contact your local Taiwanese organizations. These are real things. And depending on where you live, one of those groups is gonna be there. And they're all in favor of this foreign aid package. Get them with signs in front of these Republican congressmen's offices, screaming at them as they try to go to work. I already had a meeting with the PA Democrats. We're trying to work on something. I reached out to the Vermont Democrats, but I haven't heard from them yet. And I encourage everybody to do this. We don't need that many. We do this in 4 places and change 4 Republican congressmen's minds. That's it. We win. It's all it takes, guys. So thanks, Anthony. I appreciate you reminding me. I meant to talk about that. Be sure to check for rallies around your city on February 24th, too. Yeah, wait, does February 24th fall into the 2 weeks? What's today? Today's the 17th. Holy shit, it does. Holy shit, it does, Rational Squirrel. Good thinking, right? Those should be marches to these Republicans' offices. Maddie, I don't know what that comment means. We need 4 Republicans, assuming that all the Democrats are on board. There may be a couple progressive Democrats that may not be. So we should plan on 6. Effing hell, that's brilliant. Right? Effing hell reached out to his congressperson asking for the names of Republican congresspeople in North Carolina that might be able to flip if they got some pressure on them. That's a good approach. If you've got a Democratic congressperson, if you've got a Republican that's on the right side of history, then reach out to them and figure out what can you do to find, is there somebody in your state who could be flipped? And who is that person and how can you get to them? Why is Johnson so beholden to Trump? Why are any of these people so beholden to Trump? Because they're weak? Because they're stupid? Because they're evil? And they have an agenda that's all their own? That is as un-American as it gets? I don't know, Bobby, but they are. I mean, can you imagine we can't get bipartisan support on supporting the enemies of Russia the Democratic enemies of Russia in a fight that is depleting and demilitarizing Russia, our greatest enemy for the last 100 years? It's unreal. Oh, Anthony, it's a good thing you're in the UK. There's hardly any good pizza there either. Chopper Cordova's in North Carolina too, effing hell. Maybe you guys could get something going together. That'd be fucking great. Hey, Sasha. Sasha, which Sasha? I mean, there's only like fucking 5 names in this country. You guys really, you need to get a baby name book and start using it. Does Trump want Russia to attack Canada? Oh, Jesus, who knows? Trump wants anything that makes him look like an alternative to Biden. Did you see him going to great lengths to explain that all those times he called people by the wrong names, he was doing it on purpose? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Beyond words. Ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous. You're not wrong, James. I have a face made for radio. They followed Trump because the Republican base was shrinking and he brought it back worse than ever. Yeah. But, you know, it's not unfair to point out, guys, that the only reason that Trump could exist, really, is because of the neoliberal Clintonite Democrats throwing the working class overboard 30 years ago. That's reality. If they hadn't abandoned the working look at the fucking minimum wage. We haven't had a minimum wage hike in 14, 15 years? The minimum wage hasn't been a living wage for my entire lifetime, basically. Well, that's going to bankrupt half the country right there. That's a fucking problem. You got 42.5% of the American populace making less than the effective minimum wage. When will Trump be completely discredited? For any thinking person, he's completely discredited now, Bobby. It is unreal that so many of them, so many Americans are still enthralled to him and his lies. And they seem completely unable or unwilling to shrug it off. Yeah, Sasha, you're not wrong. Ronnie Reagan was a real problem. Yeah, Eli, you know, I had a very nice life in the United States making about that. And that was with a child. And it costs $500,000 to raise a child in the U.S. today. And I spent a lot on birthday parties, boy. Dems elitism bred from college campus. Oh, please, Doc. Give me a fucking break. That is not the problem. You gotta be kidding me. That's the solution. Rational thought, reason, the ability to think and process new information. That's what a 4-year degree does. It gives you the ability to think. And that's why Trump and his ilk love the uneducated so much. They love them because they can't think. And all you have to do is have a conversation with one of them to know that there is no logic behind that. No, don't confuse those two things. I'm talking about politicians. You're talking about the educational system. They are not the fucking same. See, I know that because I have a degree. I can tell when somebody's making a false equivalency. That's a fucking false equivalency, Doc. And you know it. So stop it. Jesus Christ. They vote against their own entrance every single time. They want to be slaves. There is a segment of the human race that wants to be a slave, that does not want to have to think for themselves, that wants to be told what the thing is. Shut the fuck up, Nightshade. If I don't want to be calm, I won't be calm. Now, see, Rational Squirrel hits it on the head, right? Rational Squirrel says you need solid public education to counter the malicious foreign influence. This is what we have not taken into account, my friends. We do not appreciate, we don't even consider it in our thinking, just how corrosive the Russian disinformation campaigns against the United States have been to our political discourse. We weren't even aware it was happening for years and years. Who would have thought that the Russians would pay people to pretend to be Americans and say stupid things to raise my blood pressure? Who would have thought that would happen? So look, I'm not saying we don't have problems in the United States. Of course we have problems. That's funny, Rational Squirrel. Of course we have problems. And there are not easy solutions. But the way to solve them is to think and work together. I don't know, Nightshade. If I had a heart attack right now and died on the live, it'd probably be great for the algorithm. This live replay would probably get 1 million views. Oh, watch, here's the part where his heart explodes. Ah. I mean, really, it makes me crazy that I can do this Navalny video and it gets 5,000 views, but the marijuana legalization got 75,000 in 24 hours. I mean, I'm happy about it, don't get me wrong, but it's not the important thing. It's not the important thing. The MAGA crowd is angry because they were told their whole lives that they would inherit America, and instead they see people of color who went to school, who got a 4-year degree, and they don't think those folks are even people. They're kind of more like monkeys. And so when they see black folks doing just fine because they did the work, instead of just waiting around expecting it to be handed to them like their house was, so they've never had a mortgage, never had to pay rent, because they're still living in the house that was handed to them when their parents died. They don't live in reality. They don't live in reality. And so many of my family are like this. They forget that we come from immigrants, and they hate immigrants. Hate them. Hate them. It's insanity. Anybody who's not white and Christian is the enemy. And that is not what America is. But you get these insulated environments, these enclaves of humanity, these little tribal groups who can elect their own congresspeople, right? And who make it their mission in life to own the libs. It's insanity. Okay, guys, we got like 6 minutes. Final thoughts, final questions. Now I'm depressed. Why am I depressed now? Did I drive Doc away? I hope not. Sorry, Doc. So, questions, comments, points of observation. The big funny today is that Russia bombed itself again in the city of Belgorod. They hit their own shopping mall. No jeans for you, Ivan. Is it Family Day, Steve-O? I don't know anything about Family Day. I never heard of that. Is that a Canadian thing? Here in Ukraine, it's Unity Day. It is Unity Day here in Kyiv, which is supposed to be a day of recognition of the 1991 borders of Ukraine, right? The whole country together. Thanks, Maureen. I appreciate it. Any plans over the weekend? I'm doing, I have a lot of work to do. That's what I have, a lot of work to do. I'm planning a 12-part lecture series for a group here in town, and the first lecture is on Thursday, and I still haven't built my PowerPoint deck, and so I got to get that done. They hate capitalism because they can't compete, effing hell. They expect, right? It's like with the Russians, right? The guys at the top expect to just be handed the industry that's stolen from the West. And that's how it's gone for them. And they've become insanely wealthy because of it. Just being handed this shit because they're sixth. They were not working class people, right? It was the middle class, the class born to money. How many of those people arrived in DC on private jets? I'm back, right? I'm here. Okay. All right, we got 2 minutes. Final thoughts. Good night, Anthony. You know, Maureen, it's not even old money. A lot of it is newer money, just, second, third generation money, where the parents did all the work and built the business and the children inherited it. Just that kind of success is enough. And then on top of that, you got the uber rich of the tech giants who just made mountains of money in the 90s. What is the downside of eating a clock? What is the downside of eating a clock? Good night, Bobby. I don't know, Nightshade. What's the downside to eating a clock? What's totally unrelated? The clock thing? Did I miss it? It's not a joke. It's some sidebar or something. Good night, Felipe. Bonsoir. It's time consuming. Ah, ha, 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 ha. All right. And on that note, we are going to call it a night. Ladies and gentlemen, big thanks to the best moderator team on the Tickety Talk. Thanks, guys. Thanks to Lars, our technical director. Thanks to Nightshade, who runs the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. Thanks so much to Ballerina, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. And I want to say I'm very grateful to everybody out there that is there for me. And I want you to know that I am here for you. On the ground in Ukraine, I'm Peter Alexievich. Make it a great day.